Hello and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Neil Howard, here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you for making us a part of your day once again. Going to have a conversation this morning about environmental contaminants and clean water. Going to talk this morning with Dr. Laurie Polasko. She's a microbiologist and Vice President and National Director of Remediation for Matrix New World Engineering. And she's joining us to talk about contaminants that affect our planet, our clean water supply, and how that affects our health in general. I know it's a big topic, just a little bit of time to cover a lot, but Laurie's going to fill us in. Welcome to Health Professional Radio. Laurie, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, I did mention, of course, that you're a microbiologist and VP at Matrix New World. A bit of background about yourself, and let's jump right into how these contaminants are making us sick.
Fortunately, there's many different microbial contaminants on the planet Earth, and these have been here for a long time, longer than us for sure. And lots of these pathogens most people are aware of make us sick. And so that's obviously the bad part of microorganisms. However, the majority of microorganisms, more than 90% of them, can be beneficial to us. And many of these microbes have been used for hundreds of years to clean up our wastewater. People probably don't think about what comes out of their toilet and where does that go and who takes care of that. I mean, it's in a pipe, but really it's the microbes that clean up the poop that's coming out of our toilets and convert it into non-hazardous compounds. And the other contaminants that we are all aware of are the man-made contaminants that we have developed over the years to help our lives be better. And now in the past, 20, 30 years, we have developed ways to take these microbes, these small bacteria that we can't even see, and use their powerful enzymes to biodegrade harmful compounds to non-harmful compounds. So that's the focus of the work I do.
Are these microbes effective on, as you say, natural compounds as well as man-made compounds when it comes to turning them into non-contaminants?
Great question, Neil. Yes, the good news is, to give a good example, is the Gulf oil spill and the Exxon Valdez. Those were huge major pollutant events. And I use microorganisms in both of those types of situations. And sometimes we take the native microorganisms and then we add various compounds, nutrients, just like our bodies need nutrients to survive and grow. Microbes are the same way. So lots of times they might be missing nitrogen and phosphorus. So we'll add things into the environment where a spill has occurred and promote the native ones. And in other situations, we'll actually add additional microbes into that environment to speed up the process. So it can be a combination of both. And yes, the microbes, certainly the ones where we have natural compounds like oil spills and things like that, most microorganisms have been exposed to those types of pollutants over the past and may have the abilities to biodegrade them. And the challenge now is for man-made chemicals, where the microbes haven't been necessarily exposed to them, and then they have to develop enzymes to degrade them.
How effective are these microbes in different areas of the country or different areas of the state that have different types of water? Are the same microbes used, and does Matrix New World differentiate based on where they are, or is it something that can be done across the board with the same chemicals or the same microbes?
Great question. The answer to all those questions is yes in different situations. So depending on the type of the water and the characteristics of the water, the groundwater source or the surface water source, or is it a saltwater source or not, different microbes will survive in different environments. So sometimes a certain microbe that biodegrades chlorinated solvents like PCE, tetrafluoroethylene, that was used in dry cleaners and things like that. There's a specific microbe that can degrade that contaminant, but it will work better under some conditions. Like if you have really high salt conditions, it may not survive as well, and then you will need to identify and develop a different microbial organism that can degrade those contaminants. So it's not one-shoe-fits-all situations at all. You really need to understand what are the conditions in your environment and what's inhibiting it from happening naturally, and how can we change that environment to make it work better.
How is Matrix New World Engineering addressing, some of the contaminants that are causing different health maladies? Do you attack certain conditions, certain contaminants for certain clients? What is it exactly that you do?
So I work for we work for all sorts of clients all over the world, and sometimes it's all different situations. So I work on sites where the groundwater is highly contaminated and the groundwater is being used as a drinking water source. So the goal is when you have high levels of contamination, and we have drinking water levels set for all sorts of contaminants in the USA, and around the world they have similar types of regulatories. The goal is to go after where there's high levels of contamination, and if microbes. So my specialty using the microbes is, can I get them into that environment? Can they start to degrade it? And if they can't, then you have to look at other different types of technologies. So there's so the latest contaminant of concern that's becoming aware to many people is the perfluorinated compounds. So before, we were all worried about the chlorinated compounds that had this chlorine atom on them, and they were hazardous to you. But now there's the fluorine ones, and you may have heard about it with companies that make the firefighting foams and the types of fluorines in your carpets and things like that. And now people are concerned about those health. And so for those compounds, we have not yet isolated a bacteria that's effective at biodegrading them. So now in order to clean up drinking water that contains those contaminants, we have to use different technologies like granular activated carbon. With that technology, you pass the water through the carbon, and it's kind of like the charcoal in your grill. You grill. So, and the contaminants attach to it, and then it's removed from the water. But the problem with those type of technologies is you're taking the contaminant out of a water source, transferring it to, a carbon thing, and then you have to get rid of that carbon source. And sometimes people have to, regenerate it and burn it, or you put it in a landfill. So it's really taking a contaminant from one phase to another, whereas with the microorganisms, they can biodegrade it to a non-harmful compound and oftentimes use that compound to grow. So different types of technologies can be applied depending on the contaminant.
Now, these microbes, once they've done their beneficial work within the water supply, we drink the water supply. Are these microbes harmless to us as well, or do they have any side effects? Do they dissipate after their work is done?
Neil, great question. I give lots of talks to public meetings, and I think it's almost every time the general public will ask me, what happens to these microbes, Laurie? And what happens is, in general, if it's a specific contaminant that, we've placed into the environment, is the microbes will grow and survive as long as that contaminant is out there and available for them to use. But as it, goes away and completely gets to a super low level or a level they can't even attack it anymore, those microorganisms will die off unless there's something other food source that they can survive on. So normally when we're adding an example, there's a microbe called the Helicocoides, and this microbe biodegrades TCE, PCE, and we'll add it in an environment, and we'll actually monitor that microbe in the water source where we're adding it to, because we want to see how long is it surviving, how well does it do, and then after the contaminants are all gone, how long does it stick around? And what we observe is that after, a certain time period, maybe within a few months or so, that microbial population starts to die off.
Well, where can our listeners learn more about the services that you provide? I know we've just scratched the surface, and there is so much more that I'm sure that you can talk about, and so many more services that you offer. Where can we go online and get some more information, and maybe get a telephone number for our listeners to give you a call if they're interested in those services?
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk to anybody about microbes. I have bacteria named after me, so I feel really close to these microbes. But the great place to start is matrixnewworld.com, but that's with one W only, so it's matrix, N-E-W, and then ORLD.com. Or they can call us at 800-747-MATRIX, M-A-T-R-I-X.
Thank you, Laurie Polasko. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us here on Health Professional Radio.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
Right. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in and download at SoundCloud, and be sure and visit our affiliates page at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au.
Thank you for listening to Health Professional Radio. We're very proud to be an independent broadcaster providing our content free of charge to you, the listener. One of the ways that we're able to remain free and independent is by having people like you become patrons. You can support Health Professional Radio simply by visiting hpr.fm and clicking the button that says Become a Patron. Your patronage of even just $1 a month lets us know that you're there, which in turn makes us more valuable to advertisers. And, of course, if you're able to afford more, then we would certainly appreciate the support. My name is Toby Longhurst from Health Professional Radio. Please visit hpr.fm, click the Become a Patron button, and support us if you can.